Is a Gibson Les Paul Tribute a real Les Paul? Of course it is. Don't be stupid. So after multiple requests over the last year, I have decided to finally make this video. It's silly, but if it helps some people, that's good. So I'll compare the specs on this to the other Les Pauls that I own, and we'll kind of be able to judge for yourself whether you think this is or isn't a real Les Paul, which, of course, it is. So here's the scenario. Someone saves their hard-earned money, they go out and they play this, and they love it, and they buy it, they bring it home, they play it at home, they still love it. They feel that it's a great guitar, it fits them like a glove, and then they go play it live, or they go to someone's house, and they start playing it, and some goofball who thinks, you know, they're better than everybody else goes, that's not a real Les Paul, that's a fake one. That's, you know what I mean, it's not a standard, it's not a custom shop, it's not a real Les Paul. Again, that person is an idiot. From that point on, that person's opinion on their guitar that they absolutely love starts to diminish, and they start to think, wow, you know what, wasted my money on a guitar that a lot of people don't think is a real Les Paul. I thought it was a real Les Paul. It isn't. So, you know, I wasted my money. I gotta save for a guitar that may or may not suit me. Now, one of the arguments over this not being a real Les Paul is that, oh, the pros only play standards. That's not true. The pros, honestly, will generally play whatever suits them. So the pros will play tributes, studios, juniors, specials, classics, standards, customs, and custom shops. It's whatever suits them. You've seen people record with studios and tributes and classic, and you've seen them play it live with them as well. A lot of people will also say that the upper echelon of the pros play custom shops. So there's always multiple levels, and it always depends on budget, availability, and comfort, what speaks to you when you play it. So there's a reason also why when you buy a Gibson Les Paul Standard, like a USA shop, not custom shop, that it comes with the standard truss rod cover and the blank one. It's so you can put it on there and it looks like it's an older Les Paul, and the custom shops don't generally have that. So there might be that little bit of smoke screen to where someone might think, hey, that might actually be a custom shop. Does any of that matter? No. But what I'd like to do here, just to help you out if for some reason you think you need it, I'm going to compare the specs of this to the other Les Pauls that I own. So this is a Gibson Les Paul Tribute. It's a Les Paul. It says so on the headstock here. We have a slab of mahogany with a carved maple top on it. The pickups are 490R, 490T. We have a Nashville-style bridge with a tunematic. We have 2 tones and 2 volumes, a 3-way toggle switch. The fingerboard is rosewood. It has the trapezoid inlays. It's 22 frets. The neck here is maple, and it has a rounded profile. The headstock consequently says Les Paul. The logo is silk screened on the headstock as well, and we have 3x3 tuners. The slab of mahogany here on the Tribute is weight relieved. It has that modern or ultra modern, whatever they want to call it, routing. So what they do is before they put the maple top on there, they actually route out a whole bunch of holes and stuff like that. So it takes a lot of the weight out of the body and gives it a little more resonance than presence, so a little more low-end feel to your body over non-weight relieved, which has a lot more presence, so you feel a little more, you don't feel all that low end in your body, so you feel it, I always say, in your hands rather than like in your gut. This is a Gibson Les Paul Studio. We have a slab of mahogany with a carved maple top on it. The pickups here are the 498T and 498Rs. Generally, you have a rosewood fretboard. However, this is an older studio and it is a granadillo fretboard. However, this one here looks exactly like rosewood. The granadillo usually is doesn't have such a deeper grain, and it is a lot lighter looking. We also have trapezoid inlays. The neck here is mahogany with a slim taper to it. The Gibson and the Les Paul logos are silkscreened. We also have the 3x3 tuners. We have two-tone and two-volume, with the volumes being push-pull to give a coil tap to the pickups. Doesn't make it sound like single coil, really. It aims at something like a P90 sound. And yes, a three-way toggle and a Nashville-style bridge with a stop bar. This also has the modern or ultra-modern, whatever they want to call it, weight relief to it. Next, we have a Gibson Les Paul Classic. This is the newer version of the Classic, so the 2019 and above. The specs are a little different. It used to be more like a Les Paul standard 60s nowadays, but we have a slab of mahogany with a carved maple top on it. At this level, we do have binding around the carved maple top. We have a rosewood fretboard with the trapezoid inlays, a mahogany neck, which has a slim taper to it. The neck also has binding on it. Now, a very quick aside here. There's like 3 or 4 people online that whenever someone notes in a video that a guitar has binding on the neck and on the body, that for some reason they're saying that there's a different sound because of the binding. There really isn't. It's all about look and feel. And even at that point, the nubs here on the fret ends have the binding on it, so it kind of feels like the frets are a little more rolled. But over time, because wood expands and shrinks and everything, you feel a little bit of indentation where the binding is. And that's kind of just one of those little nuances that, to some people, make the guitar feel a little more comfortable. The Gibson logo here is inlaid rather than silkscreen, but the Les Paul logo is still inlaid. We also have 3x3 tuners. The pickups here are the 61R and 61T, or the 60s burst buckers. Depends what they want to call them from week to week. We have an ABR1 bridge and a stop bar. And we also have 2 tones and 2 volumes. Now, at this point, the volumes are coil taps, and the tones have different options to them. One of the tones actually allows it so when you have it in the middle position that there's phase reversal here, so it makes the guitar sound a little quackier. And then the other volume, or the other tone, when you push-pull it, no matter what setting the toggle switch is on, it basically goes from input directly to the bridge, so it's a bit of a hotter bridge sound. And the weight relief here is a lot less than the other ones. Basically, it's called 9-hole weight relief, so there's 9 little holes that are drilled in the body before the maple cap is put on. Gives it a little more weight than the Ultra, but it's still very comfortable. At that point as well, it does add a lot more presence feel to you when you're playing than the Resonance, so you're not going to get as much low end as you would with the Satin Nitro and the Ultra weight relief. Next up, we have the standard 50s and the standard 60s. The spec differences here are really to do with the necks, the tuners, and the pickups. So we have a slab of mahogany with a carved maple top that is bound. The fretboard is rosewood with the trapezoid inlays, and that is also bound. It's a mahogany neck with either a 60s slim taper if it's the 60s, or for this one here, a 50s shaped neck. So basically it's thicker than the rounded. It's almost at that baseball bat feel, so you'll definitely tell the difference from slim taper to 50s. The Gibson logo is once again inlaid with the Les Paul logo silk screened, and we have 3x3 tuners. Basically, we have Burstbucker pickups here and the 60s Burstbucker pickups in the 60s version. We have an ABR1 bridge with a stop bar, and we have 2 volume and 2 tone with no push-pulls whatsoever. I also have to mention the 3-way toggle switch. And there's no weight relief here. So there's nothing carved out here other than routing for the pickups and the little cavity for the electronics to actually go, the wiring to go from the potentiometers to the pickups. This gives it a heck of a lot more weight and gives it a lot more presence feel and a little bit more presence sound depending on how you have your amp set up. And then we have the Gibson Les Paul Custom. Les Paul Customs can be very, very different. The generic Les Paul Custom that you see that with the lesser price tag is definitely a little different than the 57 one or the 68 one. It really all comes down to a lot of different nuances, neck shapes, and what pickups come with them. Whether it's the I hate to say lower end because it's not really lower end, but the more affordable one comes with 498T and 490R pickups, whereas like the 57 and the 68 and all that, they actually come with custom buckers. But this is an 88 Les Paul Custom Showcase. So the Custom is a slab of mahogany with a carved maple top. The back of the body is bound, the front of the body is bound, and there's little the binding here is like 5-ply or 7-ply or one of those. I don't want to count right now. This time we have an ebony fretboard with block inlays, and again, it is bound. However, a lot of them don't have the little nubs on the fret ends this time around. We have the inlaid Gibson logo and the inlaid Diamond Custom logo here, and it says Les Paul Custom on the truss rod cover. And again, we're looking at 3x3 tuners. We already talked about pickups here. This one, initially in the 80s, and the 88 one, it actually came with hardwired EMG 85 or 81 and 85, I believe. I have them in a case because I'm not a big proponent of EMGs anymore. I'm not a big fan of them anymore. We either have a Nashville or ABR1 style bridge with a stop bar, and we have 2 volume and 2 tone with a 3-way toggle switch. None of these are push-pulls. And once again here, there's no weight relief in this, so you do feel a lot more presence. So now that we've gone over the specs on some of the Les Pauls that I own, it kind of gives you that idea that spec-wise, this is definitely a real Les Paul. There's no binding here. There's no push-pulls, but on the standards and the customs, there's no push-pulls. And it's satin nitro rather than gloss nitro with all the other ones that I showed you there. However, a lot of people like the satin nitro over the gloss nitro. So it saves money, that's for sure, but preference really should outweigh any of that, right? That's why they do have like special editions of the classics and standards and stuff like that that are satin finish. So I'll reiterate here once again, this is a real Les Paul. It says it on the headstock. An Epiphone Les Paul is still a real Les Paul. You're going to read in the comments, I guarantee you, a lot of people will click on this video just so they can answer the question of the video and not watch any part of it. So they're still going to say like, oh, you're a moron, of course it's a real Les Paul, even though that's what I said at the very beginning of the video. But you're actually going to read in the comments, even an Epiphone Les Paul is a real Les Paul. And they're going to tell you that Les Paul went to Epiphone first. Gibson said no. But that was not on the Epiphone or the Les Paul design, that was on the log design. I love the log, but I hate the log at the same point because that is honestly a very well-known piece of knowledge in guitar history that a lot of people think nobody knows about, and they throw it out like no tomorrow there. And it is really annoying. But you're going to read that in the comments as well. And I also do want to touch on the nuance of real versus true, because you do have to have that little bit of an argument of, is this a true Les Paul? None of the Les Pauls that I own are true Les Pauls, just so you're aware. At least not to me. And honestly, it is a nuanced argument. And to me, like a 52 or 54 Gibson Les Paul, like the customs and stuff like that, the ones that I would absolutely love to have, but it's hard for me in Canada to really justify spending $9,000 on that guitar, even though I would love to do so. But that's really where you're going to be looking at spec-wise, is it a true Les Paul? Now, does a true Les Paul versus a real Les Paul matter? No, to some people it does, but you have to have that argument at some point for, you know, people who have those preferences. It's stupid, but I'll still stand by it. So again, none of the Gibson Les Pauls that I have are true Les Pauls, but they are real Les Pauls. It's a stupid argument, isn't it? So I am going to actually do a little bit of playing in this video because I hate doing this video. I think it's really stupid. But there's a lot of benefit to people out there, like a reassurance and stuff like that, and maybe some people who are, you know, goofballs, and like to tell people that the standard or whatever is the only real Les Paul. Maybe they'll look at it and go like, oh, okay, well, there's a little more information. I guess, I don't know. But for me, it's more fun to actually play the guitar, so I'm going to play, at the end of the video, I will do some playing, just with comparisons and stuff like that. Will it matter? Not really. It's more for me because that's really, I hate talking about guitars. I like playing them. But yeah, it is a real Les Paul. Don't let anyone, sway you or your opinion on whether it is a real Les Paul or not. But it shouldn't matter if it's a real Les Paul. If you like the guitar, if you love the guitar that you own, if you're bonding with that guitar, then that is really all that matters. So goofballs like me or anyone else on the internet or anyone else that you might know shouldn't try to sway your preferences to match theirs or match something that really doesn't matter. So that's the end of my philosophical talk. Here's some guitar playing.